Maybe because some Americans had, this group of Americans that predicted that Nigeria was going to disintegrate within that period. So whether people were working to ensure that their prediction manifests, I don't know. But there was a significant show of interest. American
Secretary of State?
Secretary of State don't visit country at the eve of elections, traditionally, because they want to keep away, even if they're interested, they don't want to be seen as directly manipulating the electoral process. But before the elections, America, the State House, sent for some northern governors to have a meeting in the US to discuss the Nigerian election. And of course, Nigerian election, we have North and South divide, Christian-Muslim divide. They invited the northern governors that are Muslims. The Christians were not invited to the US. And the Secretary of State came directly to the country to have various meetings. I don't see as a president of Nigeria for me to engage with America for a fight. It was not going to be necessary. It will affect my citizens and so on. So, but we saw the significant external interest, and you saw what was happening in the country. I wouldn't want to go further than this. Maybe when I publish my biography, I'll go a little more than this. There are certain things that were happening. So, of course, you will know the results long time before it will be announced, even before it will be brought to the center for that you already know. And that is why these days, even the last election in Ghana, the vice president congratulated Mahama even before, because you know their results and so on. So he knew where they were going, and I know that the country was tense. I know maybe because of the statements made by Buhari himself when he said both the baboon and the dog will be soaked in blood. So young people we have kind of mobilized to the level of frenzy to cause maximum violence if people don't get what they want. People were announcing, okay, they will run a parallel government and so on. But those doesn't bother me. But since I was the president of the country, and I also know that even in the Niger Delta, people were also ready to fight back, even though there are not many. But I know they could cause maximum damage, because if the Niger Delta people are going to fight, instead of fight, they will not fight human beings, they will fight oil installations. And it will cause maximum damage to the country, which I don't think it was. So from within that period, a lot of things were going through my head. They process so many things per second. And until you are into that kind of a situation, then you know how many things get through your brain every second. And I reflected back. As a president, I worked with a very strong economic team. People like Ngozi, who was the finance minister and the coordinating minister of the economy, Aganga, who was the trade and investment minister, the Dr. who was doing very well in agriculture. So we have done very well. We encourage people to come and invest in the country. And Nigeria was the number one country for foreign direct investment in Africa then. And our economy was. So when I have encouraged people, in most cases when Aganga make arrangements, when we travel, I used to address the investors before I hand over to him. So my face was seen as the face driving the economy of the country. And I looked through that if we have maximum crisis, all these people that have encouraged to come and invest in Nigeria, they will lose their money and so on. Besides the fact that people will die. In fact, I had in a good authority how so many houses in Abuja would have been burnt if things have gone a particular way. But even if I had won the election genuinely, yes, I had no problem. But since they manipulated the process and they are announcing figures that I was the president of the country, I'm not even one to doubt the results of INEC that appointed the people. So it will look silly for me because I appointed the people. So I said, well, it is my fault. So I will not want the country and investors to suffer. So the best thing to do was for me to announce the result, not to allow INEC to announce the result. Because if I allow INEC to announce the results, the over jubilation, they could do havoc to some parts. So while waiting, I announced the results. That was why I made that phone call. It was to announce the result, even though they were still collating. But I said, let me announce the result. And I remember that day in the sitting room, I was there. I know Minister Ngozi was there. Some ministers were there. Some of my aides were there. And, people were talking. The waitings are going, the different options. Yes. But I was just listening because as the head of state then, I was more interested in the security of the country. I was not too much interested about the fate of Jonathan after the election. That it didn't bother me that much. But how will Nigeria still be peaceful until the next government take over? So I didn't participate in the conversation that much. But people were saying different things. People were saying different things, but I was listening. Then at the time, I just left them. Then I just moved into my study, which is open to the other part of the city room. I didn't tell anybody. I just stood up when there. Then I called Buhari. So when I came back, they were still talking. Then I said, gentlemen and young ladies, look, it's over. I've congratulated Buhari.
Wow.
They just say, have you congratulated? I said, yes. So the talking should end. So one of my ministers then was there, Chidoka Osita. He was the Minister of Aviation then. I said, okay, you've congratulated Buhari. I said, yes. So, okay, can I tweet it? I said, okay, go on. And so he was the person who tweeted it. So immediately he tweeted it, it went viral. Wow. Then, of course, so I announced the result. It was better for me that I took the responsibility of announcing the result to make sure that nobody should do excessive celebration. So that's what happened, my young lady. There's always balancing between North and South, Muslims and Christians. And Yar'Adua was a Northern Muslim who was the president. And he took over from a Southern Christian, Obasanjo, who ruled for 8 years. So definitely the Northern Muslims wanted Yar'Adua to at least do 8 years before he could come back to the South for another, probably a Christian, to take over. But well, the health issue came up, and it was the problem. And that is why even to allow me to act was an issue. When Yar'Adua was going for the medical checkup, actually a letter was written. Of course, the Constitution says that for the Vice President to act, the President would send a letter to the Senate and the House of Reps informing them. That letter was written, but the person who the letter was handed over to, I will not mention the name to you now, was one of the aides of Yar'Adua, refused to submit the letter to the National Assembly. And Yar'Adua became so ill that he had no control of issues. So we had the country where the president was not available and there was no acting president. Yes, as a vice president, you can take over the responsibilities of some responsibilities of the president. You know, the president of Nigeria has two main responsibilities. First, you're the chief executive of the country, so like a prime minister of a country. That the vice president can assume you don't need any transfer. And I was doing that because we were having an executive council meeting, we were approving memos for ministers, so the government was going on. But there was no commander-in-chief. This is the second responsibility of the president of Nigeria, besides being the executive head of the country. And there's nothing like acting commander-in-chief. Either you're a commander-in-chief or not. But when you become an acting president, you are at the same time a commander-in-chief. So that was lacking, and no country allows that gap. A country like America, they don't allow that gap at all. Yes. If American president wants to, even if it's a whitlow, that he require anesthesia, that he will be off for 5 minutes, he will hand over to the vice president.
Yes.
Before that procedure, immediately he regained consciousness to take over. But we stayed for some time. And that led to what they call the doctrine of necessity. When the National Assembly felt that the country was in a situation where it was not expected, they now have to initiate this doctrine of necessity, and they now made me to act as a president without the letter from Eradua. So the country was tense. And under this North-South divide, Christian-Muslim divide, it was really tense. And every day I was hearing about coup. I remember one day, I will not mention the names of some of my friends, came to look, Vice President, that time I was not even acting. They have not even moved the doctrine of necessity. I was still the Vice President. No, you don't have to sleep here. You have to come and sleep in my guest house, and so on. I said, no, I will stay in the State House. If anybody wants to kill me, it's better you kill me in the State House, so the Nigerians will know that they assassinated me in the State House. They know I have not committed any offense. If I decided to go and stay in a guest house, and whenever I'm going, scared people would know. And if people go and kill me there, they will now say Indian girls brought apple to kill me. And I wouldn't want those kind of stories. But if they assassinate, it's better that I die here in the State House than being assassinated outside the State House, because all kinds of stories will come up. So that was how tense it was. And to me, I was not bothered. Really, I was not bothered. And I was very calm. But that was the scenario. The level of interference by the Obama's government was very overwhelming. It's not as if I couldn't have won the election even with that. But if by my own thinking, and also the way some other people look at it, they go outside the normal diplomatic relationship, then it should be mentioned. Sending that person to Nigeria at the eve of election, after Obama even issued a statement directing Nigerians to vote for the next chapter, that tells you something. And we should not sweep these things under the carpet. If a foreign country, whether African country or even America or any other country, interferes with our own elections, we should mention it. Immediately the Chibok issue came up, we expect Nigerians to be concerned. How do we get these girls out? Within a couple of days, we saw people going to the US with Bring Back Our Girls placards. How? Why? And of course, the Mrs. Obama received one of those placards. I cannot take responsibility for the abduction. I don't control Boko Haram. They are criminals. But as a president, of course, you know, it's not the president that go to the field. You have security and intelligence officers that do the work. Let me admit that, yes, maybe they do their best, but their best was not good enough for us to recover the girls. That does not mean that I'm trying to remove myself from any blame. Yes, I may not be blamed for the action, but I could be blamed that my security and intelligence system were not strong enough to be able to rescue the girls.
I thank you all for turning out en masse for the March 28 general elections. I promise the country free and fair elections. I've kept my word. I've also expanded the space for Nigerians to participate in the democratic process. That is one legacy I would like to see endure. Although some people have expressed mixed feelings about the results announced by the Independent National Electoral Commission, I urge those who may feel aggrieved to follow due process based on our Constitution and our electoral laws in seeking redress. As I've always affirmed, nobody's ambition is worth the blood of any Nigerian. The unity, stability, and progress of our dear country is more important than anything else. I congratulate all Nigerians for successfully going through the process of the March 28th general election with the commendable enthusiasm and commitment that was demonstrated nationwide. I also commend the security services for their role in ensuring that the elections were mostly peaceful and violence-free. To my colleagues in the People's Democratic Party, I thank you for your support. Today, the PDP should be celebrating rather than mourning. We have established a legacy of democratic freedom, transparency, economic growth, and free and fair elections. For the past 16 years, we have steered the country away from ethnic and regional politics. We created a pan-Nigerian political party and brought home to our people the realities of economic development and social transformation. Through patriotism and diligence, we have built the biggest and most patriotic party in Nigerian history. We must stand together as a party and look to the future with renewed optimism. I thank all Nigerians once again for the great opportunity I was given to lead this country, and I assure you that I will continue to do my best at the helm of national affairs until the end of my tenure. I have conveyed my personal best wishes to General Muhammadu Buhari. May God Almighty continue